Hi, everyone. My name is Shrikala. I am a product marketing manager at Uber. That's my day job. I sporadically write about marketing on Substack, all things marketing. And in my free time, I am an explorer on my journey. On the right, you can see some of my explorations as I was looking for design ideas for my son's nursery. So good to see all of you. I wanted to start off with a quote by Paul Krugman. He won the Nobel Prize for Economics, and he said in 1998, by 2005 or so, it will become clear that the internet's impact on the economy has been no greater than the fax machines. All of us agree. I'm kidding. We don't. It is not true. But what I wanted to shine light on was the fundamental human truth is that we are resistant to change, especially when the change is transformative, like the internet or AI. We tend to be a little more resistant when the change is positioned like a threat, right? A lot of the headlines that we're seeing today look something like this. AI is going to replace your job. This is what you need to do and you need to be worried about it. Big companies are laying off staff. They're replacing jobs with AI. And it's going to replace most jobs in the next few years. The way that I would think about it is to think about how wonderful the internet has been for us and our work. And that's how we should think about AI. So reframe and reposition it from a threat to an opportunity. And that's what I want to talk about today as well, which is how can we reframe this narrative and positioning of replacement to acceleration of your work with artificial intelligence? How can it become a force multiplier in your day-to-day? So today I'm going to talk about how you use it to your advantage specifically in the world of marketing. Within marketing, there are clear uses and demonstrated demand for AI. So much of it is in the content generation space, right? We are building messaging and marketing, tailoring it to audiences, but we are at an advantage for this function for two reasons. One is there is a wealth of examples out there. So we can actually use that to train AI according to the content and style that we want it to be. And then the second is marketing copy is not fact heavy. Like if you get a medical diagnosis wrong, the cost is too high. And always the correction in fact can be done in the editing stage. So that actually means, and if you're a marketing manager in this room, you are at the forefront compared to your functional peers in this space. So let's begin. This is going to be workshop style. I'm going to walk through different phases. And this is basically what a typical marketing campaign looks like, right? In your day-to-day, you might be doing one of these 5 things. You might be doing all 5 at the same time, depending on where your product or campaign lies. And there might be sub-phases within this. I do want to acknowledge it. This does not constitute all of it. And this might vary depending on what marketing hat you're wearing, whether it's performance, brand, product, B2B, so be it. So we have research and planning where you find out, okay, here's what the industry insights are, here's what the user problem is, and here's how my product's going to solve for it. And then you work on your strategy. You're like, okay, this is the path I'm going to pursue based on the information I have. Then you build and develop creatives based on which channels that you're going to deploy. Then comes launch day, the big moment. But then there is, as you know, there's a lot of work post-launch as well. You learn from the results, you iterate, you build on it, and then you optimize, all tying to business KPIs. So specifically, given the time today, I'm going to deep dive into research and planning, creative development, and analysis and optimization, these 3 stages. Cool. For a campaign, we always need a product. So I have 3 options here. I would love, a recommendation from this audience. I have dog food, fresh, nutritious dog food, battery electric vehicles, and then given that I'm a new mom, I had to add a children's block set in there. Any recommendations? Sorry? Oh, okay, great. Out of the three, I will admit this is the one I might know least about, which is great because this means AI can help me. Okay, so let's jump into research and planning. A big part of it as a marketing manager and in my day-to-day is like, okay, what is the exact user problem in this space? What are their barriers today? What is the size of this problem? Should the product tackle this? And how does the product actually go about tackling it? And then you kick off like research. And what does your methodology look like? Is it qual? Is it quant? Is it a combination of two? And then you have all this research that you need to synthesize into insights that you can share with either your channel teams or your product teams or business teams. And then you kick off your marketing brief and frameworks that others can use. Prompts are everything. So this is an example, and I'm going to actually jump straight into some of my AI tools here. So we have in the user problem and validation space, two like very interesting prompts that I've seen. And a lot of these are crowdsourced, which is what are typical customer barriers to using this product? And what I like to do is I want to know the size of the problem too. So if I had to, just gonna add this too. Is everyone able to see this? Okay, great. So as you know, ChatGPT used to be my go-to, but I have been looking a lot at Bard as well. I don't know what your choice is. I mean, your go-to choice for this is, but I can add something like, I want to sell. And let's ask for the same question. So I will say with the latest version of GPT, I have seen that it is much faster, which I actually prefer. Bard, slightly slower, but free of cost. So you can make that trade-off accordingly. But as you can see here, it is what Bard has given me is like very typical, like customer barriers, whether it's cost, range anxiety, charging time. And this is where I would talk about acceleration versus replacement, because if you are a subject matter expert, none of this should be a surprise to you. So this is more in terms of, okay, like either you're here to validate what you already know or find new problems in this space. And you can even frame your question accordingly. So here I'm looking at typical customer barriers, but typical is such an important adjective. Like what are some lesser known customer barriers? What are some often ignored customer barriers? And then it'll be like, can you size the problem for me? Add as much context and detail, add a dollar value to it. Size it in terms of cost, size it in terms of audience. So I do think what you actually input as a prompt goes a long way. What is interesting here is without asking for it, it's giving me solutions too. So it's like, hey, these are 3 to 4 things that you can do. But it doesn't know that I'm not looking for a product solution. I'm actually looking for a marketing solution here. What I find interesting in this, and I will say I was playing around with similar questions over the last 2 to 3 days, is I feel like ChatGPT is getting a little more conservative with the data that it's sharing. So a lot of it has like disclaimers like this, like I do not have that industry specific data or market research. And this is where I will point out another thing. Right now, we don't have specific sources, but this is where fact checking and accuracy comes to play. This isn't marketing copy. This isn't content creation. This is the basis of which your strategy is going to be built. So you definitely want to make sure that, especially if there are things here that you're going to be putting dollars behind, that you're going to be marketing behind, you want to make sure that, that it is accurate. So the second is, and this has been a really interesting one that I found recently, which is not always do you have access to researchers in your company, right? You just want to be like, okay, who are the leading minds? You don't want to read through all the research articles that they go through. And then you also do not have maybe that time and effort to actually go through like, okay, summarizing it and providing an abstract. So one of the things that you could do, and I found this to be a good help, which is, and these are leading questions. So I call them like multiple prompts, where you first ask, hey, who are the leading minds in this field? In this case, we're talking about electric vehicles. Then I'm going to ask, can you provide the title? So I'm going to get exactly what these folks have worked on. So then I get, hey, these are the leading minds. This is an example of the research papers they've come up with. I'm sure they're like multiple pages. I might not have the time for that. So I'm going to ask for an abstract. And then you get abstracts for each of these. And this, to some effect, works as like quant that you can, or even like field research that then you can use to validate with your users and customers. Again, I have a risk meter here, and I want to say this is, for me, like in terms of user problem or validation, it's low. But for things like synthesis and like field research, I would definitely fact check, because when I go to ChatGPT, and I don't know whether it's going to say the same thing, it's a little more conservative. I don't know if it'll be the same, but let's take a look. All of this is happening in real time. I'm going to check if the names match. I don't see the names matching either. But yeah, this should give you a good example of, yes. So, oh wow, it is giving me. Not bad. Yes. So look at that. That is an interesting one, because I actually saw someone use the same prompts for machine learning, and they actually got abstracts, but this was a couple of weeks ago. But as you can see now, they are a little more conservative in their responses, whereas I think Bard, given its recency, is not there yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if in a few weeks, like, we see both of them converging to one specific approach, whether it's actually providing an abstract or providing the disclaimer that, hey, you should be doing that research yourself. A lot of times these papers are not publicly available, or they are behind, or they come with a cost. So that is also something to keep in mind when you expect them to come up with an abstract. All is to say, especially when it comes to research and synthesis, you want to fact check, you want to check for accuracy. And then the other one is around brief and naming and framework creation. Once you have this research, you're going to typically put it into a brief. What you want over here is and these are 2 prompts before I jump into the next one, is one is to actually give me bullet points for subheadings that actually include the insights that I had from earlier. Who should I target? What are channels that I should be using? And it kind of helps you create that template. And the second, which is a problem, or rather an opportunity that I have on a very regular basis, is product naming. And I'm going to give you a description of a new product. I want you to return 10 product or feature name ideas. And even if you have creative constraints like avoid cliches, it actually comes back with pretty good results. Let's try it out. Oops. So these are sort of interesting thought starters. I would say, you should make it as descriptive as possible, so that you actually get names that are within your brand identity as well. So the next part is creative development. I think this is the space where a lot of progress has been made. There have been so many examples around content creation, ideation, mood boards, and audio is the latest to jump the bandwagon. Around this, what I think the industry is soon realizing is tools like these are great for short form content. And by short form, it could be like a short blog post, but for longer form content, there are still ways to go. So in the ideation space, if you are working in long form content, you do not need it to necessarily build that content for you. But some of your prompts can be, give me ideas, include a conclusion, with 4 to 5 sentences that talk about, say, electric vehicles. Or just if you're planning to do a monthly series, I need to write a series. Can you tell me top keywords I need to use? because so much of that needs to be optimized for SEO and SEM. And then if you want to go into the content planning phase, it's like, hey, I want to target young millennials on Instagram. So create a 1-month social media content plan using the 5-3-2 rule. So it is a really interesting way for you to think about content strategy, even if it's not just like title names or like fun tweets or social media posts, but how can you include it in your day-to-day strategic work as well? So this is a fairly comprehensive 4-week plan. And, going through this, asking follow-up questions, digging deep into some of this based on what your needs are, will give you good thought starters. Again, like I am not a fan of like cut, copy, paste, which is using this and then pasting it into a Google Doc and like touting it as your own. But you should use this to make your existing work better and make that very informed like decision of what works for your product, your business, and your marketing strategy. I'm not going to dig too much into this because I think this is the most widely shared, but this is, I think, where these tools are far, far ahead, which is short form content, whether it's a tweet, a post for Instagram, for Facebook posts, a YouTube description. Where I have found it to be interesting is actually moving into the script phase as well. I think that's pretty interesting. For short form content, again, I would make it as descriptive as possible. So avoid using words like this or keep it to like six words or less. Optimize for, use the right keywords, optimize for SEO. Adding that will give you an edge over, say, competitors or other people who are using it for similar use cases. And maybe say use influencer. So it not only gives you the script, but it also envisions what that looks like from a camera perspective. What could post production look like as well? Like I thought it was interesting it's saying like cut to this shot, cut to this specific shot. So even if you wanted to use the format, it would be helpful, especially if you're new to, I know like TikTok has been here for a while, but a lot like TikTok marketing is fairly new for like large companies. So if you wanted a thought startup, like how should you think about this when you're working with influencers? This is a good starting point. And then finally, my favorite, which is visual mood boards. We were talking about like, electric vehicles. I also had a couple for dog food. So for electric vehicles, this is what came out from Midjourney. I will tell you, this is a prompt that I took from, as you can see, I've been playing around a lot. This is a prompt that I took from these two, and I've linked them later, these creators online. One of the things to keep in mind, and this is a big topic of discussion, is who, especially if you're thinking of using this for a big brand, does it fit within your identity and guidelines? My recommendation is to use this as a mood board for your creative agency versus an output itself. Because the second big question is like, who owns this image, right? Like, is it the person who came up with the prompt? Is it the tool that delivered the prompt? Is it the brand? Is it the person? It is very unclear right now. So if you are in a place where, stakes are high, I would use this as a mood board. Some of the others I had was like, if you're thinking about dog food, like, and if you're going the style of animation, this could be a good thought starter. And then if you're looking at a very similar retail look and feel for children's toys, this is one that you can use. And literally, I used the same prompt. I changed the design to mid-century. And then I changed it from electric vehicle to children's toys. And then...
Shrikala, sorry to interrupt. Would you mind reading the prompt out loud
Yeah.
Just because it's far away.
Oh, sorry. It says retail store design, premium showroom. Actually, let me read the one for welcoming and futuristic retail space design for an electric vehicle showroom. Bright and ambient lighting, sophisticated shapes, a light pink color scheme, gold, welcoming atmosphere. Literally everything stayed the same. I just changed it to like mid-century classic for the children's toys, and I changed from electric vehicle to children's toys, and then I added like a wooden color scheme versus a light pink and gold scheme. If you want to, and this was again like my prompt is black and white pen sketch of a Labrador eating dog food in a park. And this would be something that I would typically send to my agency to be like, this is sort of the breed I'm thinking of. This is the look and feel. I would probably add like a baby to the mix to make it cuter, but like using it as input for your agency definitely goes a long way. And then finally, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but you've launched your campaign. Now you need to iterate and optimize. One is, hey, it's not resonating with your audience. Am I missing out like on a persona or type? So you could actually create buyer personas. Your content's not strong enough and people are not looking at it enough. So maybe there are keywords that you're missing, meta descriptions that you're missing, and then you don't have good enough open rates and click-through rates. So focus on subject line, focus on copy improvements, so on and so forth. So just to wrap it up, I think so much of this is actually on your fingertips. Actionable prompts are so important. Provide as much context, examples as you can. Make it actionable. Think of, hey, if it was me or any other marketing manager writing this, like what would be the difference? So you have to add what you uniquely bring to that prompt. And most important, check for accuracy, especially if you're building it for something that's going to be audience facing, which is going to be all of our campaigns. So those are my 4 takeaways. I put resources here. The prompts that I got, the thought starters were from these 2 Twitter handles, and then I sort of played around with it till I got an output that I felt good about. So that was just like answering your earlier question. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. These are definitely crowdsourced by people who are very good at it. I've actually linked their Twitter handles after, but there is a very robust community of like mid-journey folks who are into that mid-journey rabbit hole and come up with prompts, and they keep iterating based on like, the first prompt. One is the prompt itself. So making it, when I say train, like making your prompt as actionable and as possible that fits your need. So for example, send me like a blog post idea for this product versus send me or give me a blog post idea for an electric vehicle. Make it in the style of insert like a content creator you really like. Avoid X, Y, and Z topics. So you kind of train it to actually give you an answer that fits within what you require. And the second is the consecutive questions that you ask. So it's able to use previous information and come back with like a better output because it has that previous context.